Hi there, and welcome to Modular. This week it's the letter C, and within that we're going to look at control voltages, the heart of modular synthesis, clocks, comparators, compression and clock dividers. We'll also have a look at the careers of Suzanne Ciani and Wendy Carlos. They've been very, very important to the world of synthesizers. Before we get going though, I'm going to be talking about some of the modules in my rack, and I just want to point out that I have bought them. I'm not sponsored, I don't get sent anything for free, I don't get paid to do this in any way, shape or form, and I think it's important that I say that. We will, of course, show off some of those great modules. There are so many good manufacturers, there are so many good designers out there for Eurorack, but also for kind of like 5U format, which is the bigger version and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that in no way, shape or form am I paid or promoted to do any of this. And I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you. So Wendy Carlos was the first person to show kind of the public that electronic synthesis can be music and not just bleep bloops. The following is from Wendy Carlos's website, which is wendycarlos.com. Sadly, Wendy has been the victim of some false premise and speculation. As she stated on her website, I would urge interested parties to visit her web pages to learn more about this most influential and important artist. From the beginning, composer and synthesist Wendy Carlos has not followed a conventional kind of music career or music course. She was born in Pawtucket, RI. She started piano lessons at the age of 6 and exhibited talents for graphic arts and the sciences, winning a Westinghouse Science Fair scholarship for a home-built computer. After pursuing a hybrid major in music and physics at Brown University, she earned an MA in music composition at Columbia University. She studied with pioneers Otto Luening and Vladimir Ushensky, and apologies if I pronounced the names badly again, at the First Electronic Music Center in the US. Upon graduation, Carlos worked as a recording engineer and befriended Robert Moog, Bob Moog, becoming one of his first clients. In collaboration with Rachel Elkind, who served as her producer for a dozen years, Carlos hit platinum sales status with a 1968 recording, Switched on Bar, which propelled the Moog synthesizer into the public consciousness and won 3 Grammy Awards. So this is what Wendy is most known for in kind of electronic music. She refined her techniques in the well-tempered synthesizer and introduced the use of vocoders for synthesized singing in her score for Stanley Kubrick's film A Clockwork Orange. Long before space war movies made synthetic voices common, her haunting sonic seasonings in 1972 predated the now popular environmental ambient forms of new age music by over a decade. After recording several more albums in a classical vein, Carlos wrote horror music for Kubrick's The Shining and composed the score for the 1982 Disney film Tron. The later score established a continuous blend between symphonic orchestra and digital and analog synthesizers, an often imitated combination. Digital moonscapes followed in 1984, introducing the LSI Philharmonic Orchestra, a digital replica of orchestral timbres virtually indistinguishable from their acoustic instrumental counterparts. In 1986, Carlos turned to a lifelong interest in alternate scales and musical tunings, combining music from old world cultures with new ideas in Beauty in the Beast. Not Beauty and the Beast, Beauty in the Beast. She next collaborated with Weird Al Yankovic on a humorous musical album, coupling a parody of Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf with a whimsical new composition, Carnival of the Animals Part 2. As a takeoff and extension of the Saint-Saëns classic, this tongue-in-cheek blend of verbal and musical parody continued with the LSI Philharmonic timbres and orchestral recreation. But this time, it was performed directly into a Mac computer, using all the latest MIDI and SMPTE technology, allowing both precision and human feel in the instrument ensembles. With 1992's Switched on Bach 2000, Carlos came full circle by applying modern techniques and equipment to look back at her early classic, this time using the non-equal temperaments Bach himself preferred. It provided listeners with an opportunity to experience how far the new medium had progressed in 25 years, and contains a performance of the much requested Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Over 1992 to 1995, in collaboration with synthesist and friend Larry Fast, Carlos developed a state-of-the-art digital process of soundtrack restoration and surround stereo conversion called Digi Surround Stereo Sound. This novel technique has proven invaluable on recent film and music projects and in the remastering of older works. The latest works by Wendy Carlos include Tales of Heaven and Hell, an unusual musical dramatic work which combines themes from A Clockwork Orange with a dark and foreboding Gothic mass, and the score to the British film Woundings. Wendy then began a 5-year task remastering painstakingly optimised editions of her back catalogue, many albums available on CD for the first time. The first 2 of these, released by Eastside Digital, ESD, were Clockwork Orange, the complete Carlos score, and the constantly requested Sonic Seasonings. The most extensive album project is the definitive box set collection of her pioneering Bach and Baroque albums, including the great deal of background and historical material, test audio, photos and graphics available nowhere else. Other recent remasterings include Beauty in the Beast and Digital Moonscapes. In April of 2005, Wendy was presented with the Seamus 2005 Life Achievement Award in recognition of her groundbreaking work in the electroacoustic world since the 1960s. She has delivered papers at New York University, the Audio Engineering Society's Digital Audio Conference, Dolby's NYC Surround Sound Demonstration and Panel, and other music audio conferences. Carlos is a member of the Audio Engineering Society, the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, and the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. Carlos consults for several Macintosh developers, including Mark of the Unicorn, MOTD for those of you in the know, Opcode and Coda. She's designed PostScript music formats for Cassidy and Green and has developed libraries and tunings for Kurzweil, Young and Chang. Other interests include solar eclipse chasing, surround sound, astronomy, colour vision, photography, and other visual arts, map making, reading, gourmet food, film, and a love of animals. So Wendy truly is a polymath. That brings us on to Suzanne Ciani, also known as the Diva of the Diode. Suzanne was born on the 4th of June 1946 in Indiana, US. She met Don Buckler at Berkeley University and worked for Buckler and Associates soldering Buckler 200s. She managed to get her own 200 and is most associated with the Buckler instruments. Her first kind of paid conversations were advertising for Macy's. She said that she was homeless and happy for a period in 1975. Later in her career, she did the audio for the Coca-Cola Bottle Pop and the Fizz in the late 70s, Merrill Lynch, AT&T, and many more. She released albums, started her own record label, and has made enormous contributions to all composition in all aspects of her career. Her achievements are too great to list within this video, but please go and watch some of the interviews and her lectures. She's passionate and hugely important for electronic music. So these are 2 incredibly trailblazing artists. I hope these segments spark some kind of interest, and I've posted some links signposting to more content about Wendy and Suzanne in the description below. Right, that brings us on to kind of modular, and for starters we're going to look at control voltage, or CV for short. So looking at CV, control voltage, I guess I'm not quite sure what the best way to kind of show this is really. No idea. I think what I'll do is if I take this cable, which is caught up with all the other cables, of course. This cable's got a LED in it, so hopefully you'll be able to see the output here. Should light up when I turn the dial. There we go. So we've got red. So this mixer from Frequency Central is called the Process 26. I think it's based on a 2600 Prophet. It'll output a positive voltage there, or we can output a negative the other way around. A positive voltage there and a negative voltage there. And as we wind the dial back, we can change the amount. So with something like that, we can affect something else. Let's put it into a filter. So this is a CV control input for a filter. Let's take an analog oscillator today, I think. I'm in a frequency central kind of mood, so we'll do a frequency central analog oscillator. This was the first oscillator I built, which is why it's got all the trendy, cool kind of knobs. We'll put that into the filter, and we'll take the filter straight into the strips, which is a mixer, again from Frequency Central, not sponsored by Frequency Central, I hasten to add, and we'll see what we get. So if I do that, we've got a very, very low oscillator at the moment, so turn that up. Haven't really warmed this up or tuned it, and analog oscillators take a while to kind of come into the temperature, so it will sound a bit crazy for a while. And I could manually sweep the filter and get resonance. But I can also remotely control it using the cable that I've patched in. So that's just one example of how I could use CV to remote control something else. What's more interesting though is if you take the CV and plug it into something like this, which is the MFB dual LFO, low frequency oscillator, and this oscillator is going to go up and down and up and down. It's going to oscillate. It should see that on the LED hopefully, and then that will automatically wiggle the knob for me. And at the moment it's on a sawtooth wave, so you've got a fast attack and then its volume's going down. Could change that though. We could change that to a sine where it goes up and down, and you can see the colour of the LEDs going from blue, which is positive, and then down to red. So this is a bipolar CV, which means it goes either side of that zero line, 0 volts. So it's going up to 5 volts and then down to -5 volts and then back up to plus 5 volts. We can speed up the oscillator. And we could also use a square wave, which is just on off. So that's a bit like a gate. And again, it's going from 0 volts to plus 5 volts and then back down to -5 volts. Or we could use something like a random, which is one of the kind of favourite ways of doing a filter. You get that really nice kind of wet digital sound. Well, not digital, computery analog sound. And of course the great thing with CV, control voltage, is you can actually mix signals as well. So you can take another signal and it completely changes the character of that. So there you go. So control voltages can do a number of different things for us. They save us having to twiddle the knobs. We've only got 2 hands, 10 fingers, and there's lots and lots of knobs and dials and faders. And so with CV, we can automate things. We can just use them as we need to. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at clocks. So over here, we've got a clock. It's running at the moment. This is a really, really nice little module. It's from a company called Free Modular. Their website's freemodular.org. I think the gentleman's name is Quinn, who designed it. It's a very, very simple, easy, lovely design. I built that from a kit. It's shipped to the UK. It's really cost effective. So it's a really good value module. So I highly recommend having a look at Free Modular. You can also download the digital files to have your own PCBs cut. So this just outputs a simple clock. If I start the clock running, we can see a bass drum being triggered. Actually, I think we'll use that one. It's kind of fun. So that's the Frequency Central Cosmic Background. That's an analog drum synthesizer, basically. So we can take that signal. And every time that's flipping, we've got a signal. And with this clock module, it actually does a bit of a divide and multiply function for us as well. Obviously you can change the tempo, so you can speed it up or slow it down. But we can also use it to multiply or divide. So that's 2 times the clock tempo. Up into audio rate almost. And it'll also divide. So the other thing with the letter C is clock dividers. So on the second output here, well actually I'll tell you what, let's take one of the fast ones. We'll take this output here, which is outputting a really fast gate or trigger, I'm not sure which. And we'll use this module, which is the Pico Logic. And I can never quite remember the pictures for this, so I think if we go to that, this should then cycle through clock division. Or is that logic? I get mixed up. We'll have a look in a minute. We can also, with this Free Modular clock, we can look at the pulse width as well. So we could change that to a trigger, or we can change it to a proper gate. So let's go for a gate, see what happens. There's swing and there's phasing on it as well, so you can get swing and stuff. Let's see what happens. Let's take that. We'll put it into here. Let's see what we get. So we'll just patch this up. I don't normally patch these into the strips. I normally use the this VCA as like a drum mixer. That's the Vin Kersil VCA. I can never remember. So that's pretty much outputting the same as the signal that's going in. I think I'm in the wrong mode. Let's go into the other mode. There we go. So now that's clock dividing. So that's dividing by 2 maybe, or 4. Dividing by 8. Better. And there we go. So clocks can come from a number of different sources. We could use this as a clock. This will output a clock signal. You could also use an LFO as a clock. So if I was to take this on-off signal that we've got going on, we could use that as a clock as well. So just outputting a square wave, we can use that as a clock. And obviously you wind up the oscillator and it will go faster or slower. Another source you can use for a clock is a sample and hold. So if I use this sample and hold down here, I can never remember which one's out. It's that one. And again, I can turn that up if I've got the right output. I never get the right output. There we go. It's got its own clock. So again, the sample and hold could be used as a clock. Or you could even use the random signal of a sample and hold. I can never remember where the output is. There you go. So now that's generated a random signal. This sample and hold's got a slew as well, which will take some of the attack off it. There you go, sample and hold, using it as a clock. So give me a sec, I'll pull all these patch cables out and we'll have a look at the next thing, which is a comparator. One of the reasons I wanted to make these videos is because I don't really understand what I'm doing, and a comparator is one of those things that I have no clue about. My understanding is that we send two signals in, and whenever the signal goes above the first signal, we'll get a gate output. I believe that this Disting Mark IV should be able to put out a comparator, well, you can use it as a comparator. Never tried this before, so I'm going to stop the camera, see if I can make it work, and then I'll come back in a second. Okay, so what's going on here? Right, basically, I mean, some of these are not that important. I've got a kind of a drum mix going on. So that's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is this working as a comparator. So if you can see, this signal's got the LFO coming into it, so the low frequency oscillator, which is going up and down and up and down and up and down. And then the second one is wired into the process 26. And at the moment I've got the attenuator, which controls how much of the signal's coming out, turned right down. So all you're getting is an on signal every time that the LFO signal's going high. I think that's right, isn't it? So if I turn it up though, we'll get random, kind of more randomness, because as we raise the threshold, it'll only let the signal turn on when it's above the threshold, if that makes sense. So if you imagine the threshold's here, anything below that, you've got an off signal. When it goes above the threshold, it's on, and as it drops again, it's going off again. So as I turn the 2600 up, it should change the rhythm. There we go. It's hardly letting it, so the threshold's too high there, so it's not letting anything through. Bring it down a little bit. And you're getting that kind of double click there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the rest of the drum rhythms back in, and then I'm going to control voltage modulate this and see if that's what that's like. It should give us some kind of random drums. So I'm going to take a random oscillator from here, the low frequency oscillator. I'm going to put that in there. There we go. We've got all sorts of strange rhythms coming through now, just using this comparator. And I guess you could use a reset on the LFO. I've never really tried that. I don't know whether that'll really help, but we could try it. So whereas before we had a rhythm that was very much divisions of 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, by using a comparator and a fixed voltage, or even another oscillator, we can get some more random rhythms that are coming from somewhere else. Really quite simply. That's kind of fun. Okay, so this is where my lack of knowledge really shows. So compression is something I've really struggled with, but basically what happens when you compress something is you squeeze the highs and the lows together. And there's two kind of ways it's used in audio or music, I guess. One is to make everything louder. So strangely, if you compress the signal, so you bring the signal within a range, it allows you to boost the gain. So one way that compression is used on pretty much every album ever released in the last kind of 20 years is to make the mix louder. The other way to use it is to do what's called ducking, which is where you duck one signal out of the way of the other. And the most common way of doing that is with a kick and a snare, or usually with a kick drum, so to make the drum kind of pulse. So the Disting Mark IV from Expert Sleepers has a comparator mode. Compressor mode, and that's algorithm E4. So I've kind of set it up because I'm not great at the disting. I kind of have to look at a manual to kind of get it set up. So apologies for that. What we've got is we've got a clock going into Ornaments and Crime. In Ornaments and Crime, we're using the excellent bug crack algorithm, or applet, I should say. Sorry. This is fantastic because it uses spiders to animate the kind of attack, decay and frequency of a kick and a snare. So we've got a kick and a snare set up there, and then the output of those is going into the Disting Mark IV on channels 1 and 2, or X and Y as they call it, and then the audio output from there is going into a mix just on the Vincursal VCA mixer, and then that's just going straight to the output. It's as simple as that. So if I start the clock, we'll start to hear it, and then as I wind this knob, it'll change the threshold, and we should hear that pumping from the bass and the snare. So that's ducking. As I go the other way, it's not. And then we can use the excellent bug crack software for fun. Real snappy decay on that. And there you go. So no compression. And there's the compression. So it's ducking the snare out of the way of the bass basically. I believe you can change some of the settings. I'm not very good at it. So there's attack. So you can increase the rate of attack on it. That's release. And then we've got makeup. I'm not sure what makeup does. Makeup is the gain after it's done the compression. Get some distortion going there. And of course, because it's modular, let's use some CV to modulate that. See what happens. No idea. Nice. There you go. So I kind of hope you've enjoyed the ABC of modular, the letter C. It always feels like something out of Sesame Street when I say that. It's been quite a challenging episode for me, this one, because I don't know a lot of the stuff and I've had to research it and look it up, and then I'm going to have to edit the video and all the rest of it. Again, apologies for the low production values. I don't have time really to do more than I do. But thank you so much for those of you that have subscribed and liked the video. If you want to leave a comment and tell me how to get better at this, that would be great. As I said before though, the reason for making the videos is partly hopefully to entertain or inform, I guess. But also, it's for me. It's my way of structuring my education about modular synthesis. So today I've used two things that I've never used before. I've never used a comparator in my life, and I've never used compression in modular. I've used it in other things. So I've used it in a digital audio workstation. I've used it on a Roland IRA T8, the little tiny synth thing, the drum machine. But it's the first time I've tried it in modular. Kind of like it. Pretty cool. Don't really understand it, as usual. That's the release, isn't it? There we go. But yeah, so thank you for coming along on the journey, basically. I'll try and get another video out next week. I'll look forward to seeing you then. Cool. Take care. Bye.